Cool. Okay, guys. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I am Michaela Rose from Gift from Neptune, also known as the Cosmic Conjuress. These are my lovely co-hosts, Professor Green, aka K Green, K Green, and Shalana, aka Empress Shay. I'm really excited about this. I know ancestor veneration is something, to me, it's where everyone should start. And I know my co-hosts will absolutely agree. Nobody's going to have your back like your own people, you know? So this really helps me. I was saying this a little bit beforehand, but this really helps me, the fact that you guys have questions, because this is such a broad topic. Sometimes just teaching off the top of your head or trying to make like a slideshow or a perfect presentation can be like really, it can be hard to make it beginner friendly and digestible, but also still valuable. So I'm really excited that you guys are asking questions. So the way this is gonna go, I'm gonna kind of ignore the chat a little bit. I'm gonna start out with the questions that you guys posted in the thread in the Facebook group. And then when we wrap those up, I'm gonna open the chat for questions, but continue to engage and chit chat, you know, drop some emojis here and there. Let us know that you're still here and you're still active, but I am ready to begin. You guys ready? Cool beans. So the first question is from Jessica Camille. She asked 3 questions. The first question was, can your paternal and maternal ancestors be on the same altar? Yes, they both co-created you. So anyone who co-creates you can be on your altar. Did you guys have any input? I feel like that was pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to get into it later, but I do remember somebody saying something about like adoptive parents.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
Get into it. She also said, how long do you keep food offerings on the altar and where do you discard them?
This is a very good question. Who asked this question?
This is Jessica.
Jessica, thank you for your question, Professor Green here. So, may I answer this question?
Please.
I totally just
No, feel free to jump in.
Mars, sorry. So
you're good.
So how long do you leave your food on the altar? First things first is always make sure that you are referring to your divination, asking questions using your divination method. First things first. Now, if you're not going to do that part, okay, fruit you typically can leave on the altar for an upwards of about 2 weeks, depending on what fruit it is. Like oranges and things like that can stay. I don't recommend it, but shit happens. Then you have regular food, right? Like for me with my ancestors, I give them a portion of my food every day. Okay. So what I would say to that is you typically want to remove dinners and breakfasts and things like that. You want to try to remove that within a couple of hours. A good rule of thumb, though, is to try to have that meal with your ancestors and remove it once you guys are done finished. So hope that answers the question.
I absolutely agree. For me personally, depending on what it is, usually I'll light a tea light and sit down with my ancestors. So when I feed them, I light a tea light, maybe an incense, and that in my brain signifies, hey, come here, here's food for you, enjoy. And then when I'm done or when the tea light goes out, I remove it. That's usually like breakfast, like Kiara said. Fruit I'll kind of leave on for a couple days. But yeah, you can kind of tell when it's ready as well, because it won't mold, but it'll like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like petrify. You'll see the essence of the food leave it, and you'll be like, okay, think about like you, like, would you want to eat cold food or old food? Also, the second part of the question was, where do you discard them? I personally, if it's just a day-to-day ancestor offering, I just throw it in the trash. Like I've divined on it. They said it's fine, it's cool, it's done. A lot of my ATR mentors, they also said that it's fine to throw it in the trash. I usually try to take it out to the receptacle immediately and not throw it in my big trash, just because I don't want it in here. That's just a personal thing. The general answer usually is crossroads. You could bury it. you can, if it's fruit, you can like put it in a compost bin, you could leave it at a tree. Those are just some options, but throwing it in the trash is completely okay. And when in doubt, divine it out, ask your people. Shalana, did you want to add anything? How long do you keep food offerings on the altar and where do you discard them? You're muted, baby.
I would have to agree with both of you though. Some things I'll take like right away. Like if it's like a meal, I'll leave it out. Like let's say if I make a dinner for them, I'll leave it out like tonight. Then when I go to bed or something, I'll like discard it, or like first thing in the morning, I'll discard it. But if it's like fruit, I usually leave the fruit out for like a week, and I'll like every week I'll refresh it depending on what kind of fruit it is. You know, you'll see, like you said, it'll petrify, so you'll know when it's time. Now, as far as discarding that gets a little cute. It, like you said, you just gotta divine, because sometimes they'll even let me give it to my dog, and I'll be like, "Do you want the dog to have?" Oh, okay.
Somebody in the chat, oh my bad, somebody in the chat said, what divination methods do you use, or does it matter? And then someone else says, do you peel your fruit? I personally, if it's like something like apples, I won't peel it, but essentially you want to serve it as if you're going to eat it. And as far as divination methods, it's usually tarot, playing cards, or a pendulum. For me, I'm big on pendulums. I don't recommend pendulums for beginners. I know people have mixed opinions on that. I don't think any of us in here speaking recommend pendulums for beginners. But yeah, it's usually those forms like, hey, is this what will happen if I throw it in the trash? And it's usually like, you're good. Yes, you can throw yours outside in nature if that, but you know, be respectful to nature too.
May I add to this? May I add to this too?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Another thing to take into consideration as far as your divination methods, when it comes to offerings, it is, unless you are offering because you need guidance on whether you should be doing a spell or something, you know what I'm saying? You're coming there and you're asking them for something. If you are a beginner, a good divination method is a coin. You choose yes, you choose no. Are you happy with this? Flip. And that's what it is. And another way is dice. Super easy. You don't have to try to interpret it, but you start going into your tarot, your playing cards and things like that when you're sitting there really trying to say, like, what are you trying to tell me? What is the information that I need regarding this situation? Another thing too is, as far as me leaving my offerings, I typically set them outside for the animals to eat. And what I've noticed is, especially with this house, because when I first moved in, cats, I would see about 10 cats like a day. It would be ridiculous. So I started setting my food outside, and that seems to work really well as far as protection goes too, because they come back, the cats, and we all know what cats do. So, but yeah, like divine. Yeah. And keep it simple. Don't overthink it, because you'll ruin it. You don't want to overthink it.
I love coins, and I'm glad you brought that up. I totally forgot about coins, and that's so simple. And when people have a hard time with cards and tarot, I'm always like, oh, flip a penny, flip 4 pennies. You know, I the way I was taught penny divination is similar to Obi in Ifa. So I use 4 as if like they're 4 cowrie shells as well, but you can use 1, you can use 2. I'll get into it in the group because I don't want to divert too much from the questions, but pennies are freaking awesome. I'll answer this pendulum question at the end in the chat. So don't forget, ask it again at the end. Okay, this was an awesome question as well. Jessica also says, can you build an altar to honor figures like Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, Tupac, and Nipsey Hussle? She really wants to build an altar, and I love that she asked that. You can build an altar for anyone, honestly, if you want to. We do have community ancestors, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of people do people like Malcolm X and Harriet Tubman, and it's actually kind of funny because the first thing I thought of was my grandparents. Like, my grandparents had in their house a picture of Jesus Christ, you know, white Jesus, and JFK. Like, and it was always funny to me because that was their version of like community ancestors. Like, that JFK was like a savior to them back then. You can do that with anybody. I personally wouldn't put it on your actual ancestor altar. I would make a separate altar for community ancestors. You know, my other co-hosts may disagree. And I also, what I want to think about is, I want you guys to think about if these people would get along. Like, I wouldn't put Harriet Tubman and Tupac on the same altar. So then it gets into how much room do you have, and are these altars that you're keeping up? Are you breaking them down? There's nothing wrong with like setting up a little travel altar, or, you know, quick setup, venerate them and go about your business. But I see no issue if you resonate with them and their story. Absolutely, you can build an altar to honor community figures and community ancestors.
I want to add to that, because that was funny what you mentioned about keeping things separated and being mindful. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X do not belong on the same altar. Yes. Tried and true. Don't do it.
That's funny.
One's very peaceful and one's very radical. You know, you want to think about personality traits, and also like if you have all of these altars in your home, for one, do you want all of that energy in your home? And two, are you going to be able to keep up with it? You know, there's a difference between honoring them and venerating them. So keep that in mind too. I won't get too deep in that because we talked about it in another class, but we might be able to get into it at the end. But yeah. You guys want to add anything else to that question? Cool beans. So Deborah kind of had a similar question. She wanted to ask about venerating honorary figures. We probably just answered that. She also said, I've also seen people set up an altar or space for contemporaries who were in similar industries as that individual and can't find research info on that. I don't know anything about that. When you say contemporary, to me, that sounds like they're still alive. If you're in here, you can clarify for me, but if they're still alive, I wouldn't make an altar for them. It's not necessary. It can bring more harm than good. But yeah.
You're basically putting death on them.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really not good to put living people with dead people. Now, you can divine and stuff, but I will say from personal experience, like the only living person's altar I've ever made is like for myself on self-love stuff. Mm-hmm. But the way you make that kind of an altar, it differs. It's not like memorial, it's serving like almost like a spiritual working in a sense. And so It's really important to define, spiritually define, set your intentions before you even start gathering products for an altar for anybody or any entity, any spirit. Because like Michaela was saying, Priestess Michaela, why would you want certain energy in your house? If you're trying to bring Zen and peace, and then you like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna have to put this, I'm trying to think of somebody who's really radical. You put that energy in your house, you're gonna feel like a lot of rebellion. You're gonna feel that energy, like for example, the Tupac. You're gonna feel some thug life in your house. Just be prepared. Like if you don't want thug life in your house, don't put the Tupac up, please. Don't. Okay, y'all. Just think about it. If you don't want to possibly bleach your man clothes, don't put a Lisa Left Eye altar up. Because you're bringing that energy. So just be aware. That's all.
Right. I absolutely agree that it leans more towards like spiritual working. Like now, if you're trying to make an altar for someone who is alive, this person now becomes your target or your querent. It's not necessarily an altar. She said something about similar industries. To me, that sounds like, oh, I want to work their head so I can get a raise, or I want to, I don't know, I want to network with them. I don't know, that's more spiritual working than altar. We'll move on to the next question.
I got something to add here.
Oh, yes.
Did we get clarification? Because I didn't see the clarification.
I don't think she's here. So
okay.
I don't see anything in the chat.
I do want to bring this up because this is super important, right? Because when we're talking, for instance, with our lineage, a lot of us, we do not have access to faces, names of who some of our ancestors are, okay? So when I heard the word contemporary, for some odd reason, I got a download to tell everybody that as long as you, how do I say it? If Jesus is a perfect example, we all believe that Jesus is Black, hands down, or has olive skin, right? But what did Leonardo da Vinci do? You get what I'm saying? If you have a specific face that may remind you of an ancestor or remind you of that person, you don't know the history behind that specific ancestor, you can still pull that energy in. It's your intent that matters. I really hope that that clarifies. Not clarifies, but the contemporary thing, I just felt the need to give that to you guys because we are very far removed from our lineage, and we descend from 2,500 grandpas. So
yeah, and we'll get into not knowing your ancestors because I know Linnea, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I know she asked that as well. No, you're good. You're fine. But girl, tell me how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry, babe. I'm gonna call you Lynn. But yeah, we'll get into not knowing your ancestors later on. Or in this question, who is this? Emily. She says, I literally this morning was asking myself which family members actually want to be contacted or venerated. I didn't know my family, my maternal grandmother and great grandmother and my paternal grandfather all transitioned while my mother was pregnant with me. I didn't know them personally, but curious what they want. Divine. Honestly, so I personally would put, if I have a picture of them, I put them on my altar. Like, you don't have to necessarily have a personal connection with them. As long as they're not like a creep or like wasn't known for anything destructive in real life, or not in real life, but as they were living, they're pretty much safe on their altar. Like, these are your people, whether you know them or not, they know you and they're a part of you, you know? Y'all know on Avatar when Aang was like, oh, I can contact Roku, and he like literally astral projected his past life in front of him. That's kind of what you're thinking of. Like, you have access to all of these people in your lineage. I love Avatar too. That's my favorite show. But yeah, so, and then if you start seeing like more chaos or destruction in your life, that's when you'll know, okay, I need to check something on my altar, or I need to see what's going on. But for the most part, if they're your ancestors, you can put them on your altar. Did you want to add anything, Kay?
You know what? Sorry, I was in the middle of a diaper.
Oh, mother.
Sorry, go ahead. I was like, wait. I don't know if we was moving on. I'm like, wait.
Okay,
go ahead.
He's doing some crazy stuff right now too. But no, I did want to add to that. As far as your lineage goes. But I lost it because I saw Shalana's beautiful face.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry for being beautiful. Are you kidding me?
I didn't mean to distract you.
This is great. I love those distractions. You're beautiful. Woo! Okay, you go for it, and I'll think of this. Okay. What was I gonna say?
Okay. Girl, now I'm all thrown off. Okay, what I was gonna say was when we were talking about the ancestors that you don't know and divining on that. This really brings me to an interesting subject of half of my side of the family, like my dad's side, a lot of them still to this day be on some girl fuck you when I put my altar up. While I still like venerate them and I do like acknowledge them, they still be kind of like, what she want? So it's a kind of touchy thing, but my personal opinion is you should always honor your family. Like she said, as long as they're not like somebody who's done something like really egregious towards the family. But even then, you should still venerate them. And the reason why is because, like she said, they're a part of you. And when you heal, there's strength in healing. So you have to kind of heal them for their elevation in a sense. Like, you have to honor them and let them know, like, yeah, you might do some fucked up stuff. Excuse my language, y'all. But you don't deserve to be forgotten. because some part of your journey lives in me, and I have to acknowledge those things, because that's how generational curses continue on, because you're not acknowledging that, and you're not trying to help heal and fix and correct the behavior. Because you have to always go back and say, all right, what made, crazy Uncle Johnny touching all up on people? What's going on with him? Like, why is he even behaving this way? And do your best to try to heal your ancestors, because they are all valuable in their own way.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to talk about boundaries, right? With ancestors, because a lot of people think like, oh, you venerate your ancestors and it's this one-way street where they tell you to do a bunch of things and then you're running ragged for them. When you are alive, okay, typically the matriarch, patriarch, okay, whoever's next in line, depending on how your family is. When you are in line and you are trying to venerate your ancestors, it is your responsibility when you are venerating your ancestors to heal what we couldn't heal before. Do you understand what I'm saying? Which means that is going to mean that you are going to be arguing with your ancestors. You are going to be listening to your ancestors argue. Mine still argue to this day, and I've been venerating them for 7 years, and they still argue. Our responsibility is to heal that. And it's the same way you would do a spell. It's the exact same way, getting a candle out, going over the generational curses. And what we don't know, we think that the generational curses start with our family, stop with our family. When you're venerating, right, and healing your bloodline, you heal. Then you go out into the world, law of oneness, then you go out into the world and you touch others. So that generational, we automatically think it's family. Generational means from 2010 to 2020. That's our generation. That's who we're touching. So it's bigger. Ancestor veneration done right goes further than your family does, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next question. I love this question. Alina says, can the man I plan on marrying share an altar? I personally would not put you guys' ancestors on the same altar until you're married. Once you are married, that is a contract, both physically and spiritually. It gives you access and authorization to work with their ancestors, because the traditional meaning of marriage, you are now one. So you guys now share ancestors. I know there's some mixed feelings on marriage, but from a spiritual aspect, you have domain over your husband's ancestor to work with his ancestors, and he also can work with yours. Now, I also want to touch on making sure that the families agree or are compatible, or it gets very touchy, and I've seen bloodlines get chaotic and mixy because the ancestors don't get along. And I'm trying to be careful with my words, but certain like backgrounds, one family could be protected by one entity, for example, and the other family could be protected by a completely different entity. And when you guys merge, it could cause chaos. So I want you guys to be mindful of, not only just moving out of love, but also making sure your union is supported by spirit, by your ancestors, and if not, to see how it can be mended, or what kind of deal you can make with them, or how to incorporate them together to reach some kind of compromise. But to answer that question, when you're married, yes. Before you're married, no.
I do want to say something. Once again, big on boundaries, because I'm alive and you're not, kind of deal. Yeah. You want me to do something for you, right? You want me to heal the lineage. This is what I'm going to need. Having those boundaries, right? Your ancestors are going to fight like cats and dogs, even the ones that are protected by the same pantheon. And it's kind of one of those things. Do you want a glass of water today? Or are we going to come back tomorrow and try to be No, seriously. And I know that's a weird way to go about it, but this is how I communicate and set boundaries. Like, if we can't stop fighting, somebody's not going to be venerated. I'm not talking to somebody today, because what you'll start to notice is once you form that connection with veneration, it's almost like another lifeline. And you have, all I'm saying is, you have more power than you think you have when you are venerating your ancestors. And it is okay to have boundaries as long as they are justified and they are respectful. That's all I'm going to say. But they're going to fight like cats and dogs regardless. So have fun with that. And you'll learn how to be a mediator real well.
Miss Shalana.
You know I was gonna have a word.
I know.
Because the married lady in the club wants to say something. You know what I'm saying? It is a really, I don't want to say tricky game because it makes it sound like it's something negative, but there is a certain level of finesse that comes along to being married and honoring the other person's ancestors. Because not only did Michaela touch on it with the they may not like each other, they may not like your ass.
Or your kids.
And yeah, and that's it. And then that's it also goes into what I was talking about with the last question, because my ancestors on my dad's side didn't necessarily care for my mom. So they naturally look at me like, who the fuck is this girl? Like, man. You know, so they may not give you the love you're expecting, or the appreciation that you expect from venerating them, but that doesn't mean that you don't. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you should do certain things. Like, maybe you shouldn't cater to them on your altar. Maybe you should just, like, when you leave food out, you let them know, like, hey, free game. But when it comes down to asking for certain work, you don't expect them to do nothing for you, because you know how that may not even be something they can do, because like you said, you don't know if they're working with the same pantheons. You don't know if they're even elevated. You could just have a really tough bloodline, and it might be more for you than you can even, like, accommodate. So it's really important to not only sit with your spiritual court, but his, and talk to him, because it could be a closed line because the husband. So it's a lot of weird stuff that happens when you start talking about spiritual contracts and marriage and altars and veneration, because it gets really tricky. And when you have kids, then it gets real interesting. So good luck, have fun with that, y'all. Divine, heavily divine. That's, like, I would say when we go through all these questions, they're always going to end with divine, because your people know what they want, and no matter what advice we give you, it doesn't trump what they want for you. Because I've seen people's houses get burned down because they keep fucking around and finding out with their ancestors, and then all of a sudden, this has never happened. I don't even know how this caught on fire, and they like, bitch, we told you, we do not like this. Stop putting it up here. So be careful, y'all. Be careful.
Yes, and we're gonna keep talking about divination. If you guys ever divine and y'all don't know what it means, please feel free to post it in the group. That's why we're here. That's why I created the group. I really want you guys to get comfortable talking to your own people and getting your own messages. That way it's less room for people to be predatory. I don't want to I don't want to go off too much, but I really want you guys to start learning how your people communicate, and we're here to assist all of us. Like, the people, admins, group experts, I trust them with my life. I trust how they have been trained, and I trust their insight. So we are all more than willing to help. So the second part of Alina's question was, can you venerate someone else's ancestors if their lazy ass ain't doing it, by feeding them, making sure they have fresh water, etc.? I see Kiara shaking her head. I would say yes. And I also would say, this is also a warning to you that if you don't venerate your people, somebody else can. So to also treat your ancestors with respect, and also treat your bloodline, show them some attention, because somebody can venerate them. And people we like going where we fed, right? So ancestors are the same. Me and Shalana's previous godfather did a class on stealing ancestors that was very enlightening. And the major question was, why would you want to do that? Like, why would you want to know how to steal ancestors? But the point of it was, you need to pay attention to your people, because those ancestors that you're not paying attention to, that you're not healing, that you're not talking to, they can be venerated from someone else and used against you. It's not super likely, and most of the time it's not likely with your close bloodline, like your parents, your grandparents, people that actually knew you, but it is possible. I don't say that to scare you. I want to give you guys something to think about. But back to the question, you can just keep in mind like what you're opening yourself up to.
That's why I was shaking my head. Because that is an advanced, like, people don't understand, that is an advanced practice. Even when I am reading for people and working for them on behalf of somebody else, I am trying to communicate with their ancestors and making sure that that shit's okay. Because there are certain ancestors who are tricksters. They will trick you, and just on GP, because how dare you think that you're supposed to be doing this. They will move you. They will trick you. If they're kind enough, they will guide you to teach, but to do what the other person is supposed to be doing, it's a huge thing. Another thing is, you want to steal somebody's ancestors for power. Because I heard somebody ask, I literally asked, why would you, maybe you were saying that you would want to steal somebody's ancestors for power. And I want to go back into this. If you are not heavily, because Michaela, that's a good point. If you are not venerating your ancestors, do not talk shit. That's all I have to say in the spiritual community. And this is not to scare you. It's two things that goes into that. Your ancestors are the first line of protection. A lot of people like to wager with their ancestors. My ancestors do this, my ancestors do that. Meanwhile, your ancestors are telling you to shut the hell up. They don't want to be involved because they don't want the fire that could potentially happen. Second of all, if you are not venerating your ancestors, somebody who does have that advanced knowledge and understanding of what a happy venerated ancestor can do, they'll snatch them, and you have no power because you have not had any type of relationship with them. You hear what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, A, stop talking about your ancestors and what they do in the tone of fighting, combative, don't fuck with me, because
you treating them like Pokemon. Well, not y'all, but I've seen people treat them like Pokemon. Like everybody's just ready to wage war, and it's like they don't work like that.
There's still it's called a spiritual ranking that a lot of people ignore. And two, just don't start shit with people. I don't know why people do it. Just be nice, be kind. Unless you know how to fight, then that's different. Don't listen to me.
Ladies, it's interesting that you're saying that. The only thing I kept thinking about as y'all were going down this path was a lot of this is like, I know you guys think that maybe when people pass on that some of these things that, the customs that we carry in this realm don't carry over, but a lot of them actually do. Like, if somebody don't like certain things when they're alive, or somebody is like with the woo-woo when they're alive, they with the woo-woo still. Like, it takes so much time and space for certain spirits to be elevated to a space where that woo-woo is toned down. Because the truth is, you transition your lessons too. The ones you haven't finished learning in this realm, you carry them to the next life. So a lot of times, like that, your crazy auntie is still your crazy ass auntie. So you're sitting here playing games and trying to venerate other people. You don't know if your crazy auntie know they people, and now it's a problem with your lineage. And now you're getting karmic energy from even doing that in the first place. You're sitting here feeding someone else's ancestors, but you got great grandma who's still, suffering and struggling, and you haven't even acknowledged her or even, tried to form a relationship close enough with your ancestors to where that she even, needs the healing. So it could take you, a full lifetime just to really like take care of all your ancestors, because you have so many. So to sit there and like start trying to feed others and worry about their shit, stay over, go in the house, like it's real, go over there, because you really don't understand. Like Kay was talking, it's a higher level of magic and energy that you're putting yourself out there for. Like we all got that con artist family member. If you decide that you're gonna go to someone else's family and you don't know who that nigga is, and then that's the one who answers the call because he's hungry and he wants the cigarettes you put out, you should be careful, because when your work start getting sketchy or you wondering why this is happening to you or why I keep attracting all these weird like scammer niggas in my court. Because you got Uncle Ray Ray and them helping you now, and Uncle Ray Ray and them ain't shit. And that's why, and it's all in your energy now. So be very careful when it comes to venerating other people's ancestors. Even if it's a boyfriend and you think you're doing the right thing, even if you're taking work for clients, a lot of people will do that and not realize that you can't do certain work for certain people. It's not because you're morally against it. It's because your ancestors are like,
yeah,
we're not getting in that. So be very careful when it comes down to dealing with anybody else's ancestors other than yours. Make sure your home team is tight.
yes. If it's in the aspect, because I if you're asking this question, I would hope for the best and hope that you're just trying to heal them. And in that case, I would say, like, you could say a prayer, you can light a candle, whatever. I wouldn't go as far as venerating their ancestors. I would stick to simple healing work, simple prayer. Prayer is just as magical. Let's move on. You guys having fun? Drop some what emoji should I use? Drop some lightning bolt emojis in the chat if y'all enjoying this. Next question is, okay, Brianna Floyd has a lot of questions. Yay. Okay. Do you have to include both sides of your family? No, you don't have to. What happens when you're trying to reach a certain ancestor, but they won't come to you? My ancestors come to me in my dreams. They may require a little extra veneration, or they really might not want to be bothered, or your other ancestors may be protecting you from their ancestor. You would have to ask them and see what's going on. For some readings I've done, I've had people's ancestors not show up at all. So it really just depends. And I'm gonna let Kay kind of chime in, because that's really all I have to say about that.
What I've learned is, in my experience, my ancestors, certain ones come at a certain time in my life. I can sit at my altar and ask for my great grandma Sarah to come 100 billion times in the world. But if that ain't the one I need, she ain't coming. The one I need is the one that's gonna come. Another thing is, what was the question? Can you, I lost it. Sorry, guys. ADHD.
The first one?
What?
Was it the first one? Do you have to include both sides of your family?
Yes. Do you have to include both sides of your family? No, you don't have to include both sides of your family. And to be honest with you, your matriarch line is probably going to be where you get most of your intuition from. So if you are really heavy into your craft, your matriarch moon is where you would be heavily focused on if you had to choose between the two. When it comes to implementing your logic, what you do with your hands, things like that, it's typically on your father's side. I just wanted to throw that out there. That is also something that I learned. So, yeah.
Ooh, you know what, Kane? That I love that you said that, because that allows me to kind of pick up veneration. A lot of people will tell you to venerate your ancestors on Sundays. I actually feel more like what Kay just said. You consider your bloodline. Monday is the moon day, divine feminine. Sunday is masculine, male energy. So you can actually divine for your father. You can actually venerate your ancestors on your father's side on Sundays and your mother's on Mondays. And that's like a huge, like what you'll find if you do things like that, even if you just play around with it, you'll actually have more in-depth relationships with each side respectively and each gender. What you'll find is your masculine energy will always show up on Sunday, and they will always give you that, come on, like chin up, come put your chest out. And then on Mondays, it's more like that So now that you got your chest out, here's how you move through the situation and get it taken care of. And you get a nice balance of each. So it's really, really fun to think outside the box of how you honor your family, because there are so many different correspondences that you can use to build that relationship. There is really no one way to do it. So yeah, I love that she said that. And also keep in mind your toes. When you're doing your Ori feedings, they're actually centers that you're supposed to touch in your toes that help appease your bloodline. If I'm not mistaken, your mother's is the left and your father's is the right. So keep that in mind too. When you're doing like massages, get those, the big toe, always massage and do prayers. Just saying.
That also kind of ties into her second or third question. What does it mean when your ancestors stop coming to you, period? I'll let y'all answer that because I need to process.
May you please repeat that question? I may have heard.
Yeah.
She said, what does it mean when your ancestors stop coming to you, period?
How do you know that they stop coming to you? You know, that's hard to say because
you know, I'm gonna let Shalana go first.
Right. I'm like, we all sitting here like so that's a tricky one because they may not be not coming to you. They may just be putting you on ice. It's almost like as a parent, sometimes I gotta put my kids on ice. I've told you what you need to do a million freaking times and you haven't done it. And you're calling me like, mommy, I'm ignoring you now. I'm shutting down. I'm not answering no more questions until you do the fucking work. And then you can come and find me. I'll always be with you. My presence is always with you, protecting you. If you're asking for protection, remember that protection is not a birthright, it's a request. But as far as like communication, like you might find static every time you ask a certain question, or when you call on this particular ancestor, you feel like you don't feel their presence, because it's like what Kay was saying. Just because that's the ancestor you want doesn't mean that's the ancestor that's going to show up for you. They may be sitting back like, I already told you. Now I'm not gonna tell you again. Like you're either gonna do this on your own and figure it out, or you're gonna have to ask a different ancestor, because I'm not gonna do it again.
That's a really good point, because I will say sometimes, especially when I first got into ancestor veneration, sometimes I would ask the same thing or they give me the same answer pretty much. And I guess that could kind of be a form of them not showing up for me, if that's what you mean. And it really, in that case, it really can just be you need to fix this problem, or you're not listening to us, or, you know, we don't know what path to give you advice on, because there's so many paths, so many timelines that you're on. So that might be it as well. It really depends. We might circle back to this question.
I have a little shan.
Okay, baby.
Your big shan. So the first thing I tell people to do, you know how you got a computer and you're like, oh, my computer's frozen. What's the first thing they tell you to do? To shut the computer off, to restart it, right? 9 times out of 10, if you feel like your ancestors have gone quiet, it has something to do with you. It's a cleansing you need to do. It's a reset that you need to do so you can get back in tune. Typically, ancestors go quiet when your life gets really stressful, when you don't have enough time to venerate them. And they don't do it on purpose, but like I said, it's a connection that you have with them. It's a life force, okay? And so if you're not feeding that life force, or if you're not aligned, misalignment is literally the first thing I tell people. Reset like you're a computer. And then another thing to take into consideration, why do I keep on getting these downloads? I'm so sorry, guys. Like, I'm really ADHD and I get downloads at the same time when I'm trying to talk. And I'm weird. So it's like, God, I mean, they're watching. But anyway, what I was gonna say was,
my reset. Go crazy too now.
Reset, okay. Make sure that you're resetting. And then another thing to do is watch what you're eating. That's another thing that I've figured out. Your diet can disconnect you and misalign you as well. So just pay attention to that. What was the other question? Because there was something else that there was. What was that? Did I miss something?
Oh, that was the question we were on. What does it mean when they stop coming to you, period?
That was, yeah. And if they stop coming to you and you're on the right track, which is, I call bullshit, respectfully, because it's like they just don't go. You need to start looking at who you done pissed off. I said, I'm sorry, it's the truth. Who'd you piss off? Okay. And yeah, who'd you piss off, really? Because like I said,
no, for real.
we get in, shit gets stolen. I'm just saying, because we play like Pokemon, like you were saying, gotta catch them all. You know what I'm saying? There's somebody out there, Pokemon master, that is very good at this shit, and they do shit like that. So you start hearing silence, you might have pissed somebody off. So that
because it might not even be, oh, they stole your ancestors. It might be, oh, they're working your head, or oh, they're blocking your communication. It's a lot of stuff that goes. They call it the occult for a reason. Like, it's not play. I'm gonna leave it there. So the next question was,
there was literally a Pokemon game in my head. I'm like, can you not? I'm in the conversation. I love you guys.
The next question was, how can you venerate in a better way when you aren't allowed to openly practice your spiritual practices? So there's a few ways. When you're eating, you can just set aside some food, pray over it. That's an offering. When I was moving around a lot, I literally had a picture of my altar on my phone, and I would set my phone up, set a tea light candle in front of it. Sometimes I would get a glass of water, sometimes I wouldn't. You should have a glass of water ideally, but sometimes I didn't have access to that. So I literally would just sit my phone up and have a candle and just talk to them. They're also a part of you. You can literally just talk. There's ways to hide your altar in plain sight. So a lot of times I've seen, like, I'm looking over here because I have like this cube thing, and I've seen people like put different things in each cube to represent the elements, and then it really just looks like you have pictures. Nobody's gonna question. I don't know I don't know your living situation, but people usually don't question, oh, why do you have family here? You don't have to keep a candle lit all the time. I snuff my candle out. You also can, there was something else I was finished. Oh, travel altars. We talk about that a lot. You have a travel altar. I always say, get you a shoebox, decorate it, keep some, look, Kay finna get her travel altar. Listen, shameless promo. You can get a shoebox decorated with some pictures. Keep like some little tea lights in there. There's plenty of ways, but they're a part of you, essentially. So you can do, that's Kay showing her travel altar. It's beautiful. Like, you can literally take any box, decorate it, and it is what it is. Set it up when you're using it, when you're praying. Close it when you're done, just put it away.
I was just showing this so you can get an idea. This one's not for sale because it has a big ass, obnoxious ass sunflower on it. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but
Sipping Oshun.
It is. Oh my God, I have a really good story about Oshun, but I won't do it here. But yes, this is a Jupiter one. It's got my Jupiter in here. But travel altars are good in general, even if you aren't hiding, because you don't want people to know sometimes where your shit is.
Yes.
Abundance, people are always after the money. Get yourself a crocodile head, a traveling Jupiter altar, move that shit around. Just saying. Okay.
That's a really good point too, because people this is why I don't keep my altar lit all the time. When people know where your altar is in your house, it opens you up for attack, because the altar, and again, I'm not trying to scare y'all, but an altar is a spiritual portal. So when people know where your altar is in your house, they can literally, I've heard of people like astral projecting through your altar. You can keep a mirror, you can charm a mirror and keep a mirror on your altar to deflect that. But I just wanted to touch on that too, because Kay talked about moving it around or keeping stuff hidden. So that's also the option for that too. Just be mindful. My bad.
I was like,
I just saw your mouth in the open. I'm like, oh, go ahead, my bad.
She knew I was about to. Surprisingly, there are so many different things that you can use to kind of, I don't want to say replicate an altar, but like even mojo bags. Because as soon as they started talking about like that, I was like, girl, get you a mojo bag and fill it with all your like ancestral goods, and keep it in your purse. Keep it on your person. There's a lot of things you can do. A thing that I'm working on now is I'm making a family crest. So when you have that crest, you know that every time you have that crest on, you rep it. You rep it for the set. You know, like essentially think about gangbangers, how they rep their colors, they rep their stuff. They have something that even though I'm not straight up saying, hey, what's up, you know, throwing up the hood, you know, when you see that blue hat with the S on it, you know what it is, you know. Or you know the little peekaboo of blue and something, or the blue fat laces on the Converse, like, oh, he crippin' tonight. Like that's the idea that you want to have when you're repping your ancestors, because essentially they are your hootie hoo. You know, that's why I always do that. I be joking with hear me, Carol always do that. I'll be like hootie hoo. I mean, come on, y'all. What's up? Y'all riding for me or what? So when you got that person at 3 a.m, you want to go and slash their tires. Who you lighting the candle for? Like, TT, I need your help, girl. Like, we gotta F them up. So treat them like your riders, your partners. Keep them with you. Keep charms in your car. Make your life a living altar, and always have a sense of ancestor protection with you, for you, all day long. That's the best advice I could give, because if you kind of keep a constant altar, every time you go, everywhere you go in your house, there's some kind of representation of them. Even if, like, for example, I have certain rooms in my house where I have altars dedicated to deities or altars dedicated to certain things. But in every element of my home, there's some kind of veneration of some ancestor in some way, shape, or form. There's kind of like when you use antique items, like you take things that used to be your mom's or your grandmother's and things, and you use them in your home. That's a form of veneration, believe it or not.
Yes.
So live an enchanted life. Don't just limit yourself. There's so many ways you can include altering your life that doesn't have to be the mundane that you're expecting.
Yes.
Another thing I want to add, venerate if you have to hide outside. Go to the forest, go to the woods. The cool thing about that is you're going to be able to leverage the power of the birds, the tree, right? So definitely that is a great way. Honestly, I recommend do all spell work outside. I'm not going to even bullshit you. If you're doing some heavy ass shit, take that shit outside. Seriously. But venerating your ancestors, and when you're hiding, do it outside. It really helps too. Especially
at a tree. I see trees as like a form of antenna.
Yes.
They amplify vibrations, and they've been here forever.
And they talk. I'm just saying.
They do talk.
They talk.
She said, we're still on Brianna Floyd. Is leaving food a 100% requirement? So in my opinion, no. I've seen ancestors not like food. So for me, I'm always like, why? What are we doing? Why are we leaving food? The concept is you have put your energy into creating this food. You have put there's a collective energy that has contributed to this offering that you are giving, whether it's food, flowers, cake, candy, water. There's a collective energy that is now pooling around with the cake. Somebody made it, somebody packaged it up, somebody put it in the store, somebody checked you out, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's touching all of these people. You can use all of that energy to empower and elevate your ancestors. So I say that to say food isn't necessary. You can do other things. You could do flowers. You living a good life, you taking care of yourself could also be an offering. But yeah, so just think of it as energy. You're giving them power. You're not necessarily feeding them food, quote unquote. You're just exchanging energy with them. So I would say no, it's not necessary. Do you have anything to add?
You would be.
Go
Go,
ahead.
Shalon. Nope, I like your face. You go first.
Girl, you hype me up, hype train. I was gonna just say, get creative. Sometimes y'all, it's like I can't stress it enough. When you're talking to your ancestors, they fucks with you regardless. So if you in a really tight time, believe I'm gonna laugh or not, you better draw a picture of some food, something, get creative, because here's the deal. Just like when you a little kid and you go home and you bring your mom that little macaroni picture and you like, and she just laughing and smiling like, look at my baby just made this ugly shit for me and got glue hanging off the side, but you love that shit because you know the energy and the love that was put into making this for me. That's how they see your offerings, whatever they are. They thinking of you. It's really the thought that counts to some degree, because they're saying like, you know what, she trying, like pull a little tink EBT card and hit. She tried. She drew us a picture. She's giving us the energy. So don't shortchange yourself and think that your efforts go unnoticed, because they don't.
Mm-hmm. It's really time.
It's we are projecting a lot of goddess energy in here. I just have to say, like Michaela, Shalana, Emily, and like everybody, I'm just looking at you guys and I'm just like, you guys are so damn beautiful. But anyway.
Magic, baby.
No, seriously. Like I'm so distracted because I'm like, oh, shiny things. This is great. Okay. But what I was gonna say, as far as you would be surprised by what you make happen just with the thought of venerating. Like I have said, oh, I'm about to do a blockbuster. I'm going to have to bake some apple pies. I will go and start baking my apple pies and then notice things around me are starting to happen. Sometimes you don't even need to go through all of that. It really is the energy, the thought that really does fuel your reality. Just throwing it out there, because food, I mean, it's food and it's hard sometimes to do food. Okay. And yeah, just keep that in mind. The thought, think, ponder on it. You would be surprised at what you can make happen just by saying, I am thinking about making you apple pie today and seeing what happens. I don't know about you guys, but does that happen to you? You'll be like, oh, I'm going to do something. And then all of a sudden, and you're just like, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of the first thing I learned about magic was it starts in your mind. So it's the same for ancestor veneration. Like your mind is so freaking powerful. Can't emphasize that enough. So even just the thought of, okay, I want this to happen, so let me prepare and da 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 da. Once you start thinking about getting things moving, that's when they start moving. Now, how you carry it out is another topic, but that's when things start moving. So I definitely agree. Okay, next question. I know that all 4 elements are required, but what are small ways to do that, since it's not possible to set up the full altar you desire? A glass candle. Candles represent all 4 elements. Honestly, I would say they don't even necessarily have to be glass, because when the candle is in its full solidified form, that represents earth. When it melts, that represents water. When the flame represents fire, and the smoke that comes from the flame represents air. So there's a lot you can do with a candle and a prayer. That's the easiest way. All right, I'm gonna move on because I feel like that was pretty simple. What's the best things to include on your altar? That goes back to the candle representing the 4 elements. I always say, if you can do nothing else, start with the candle and a glass of water. Not the glass of water not only being an offering to your ancestors, but water is a conduit of spirit. It's a portal. So yes, they can drink it, but water is literally life. So I say start there. If your parents practice a particular religion, you can put religious text, religious symbols on there. I have a cross and a Bible on my altar. You can put a Quran on your altar. You can put, I actually have an ankh, not a cross, because I like the ankh better. But you know, things like that. If you have any of their items from when they're alive, jewelry, yeah, stuff like that, like any of their possessions, things that you know that they liked when they were alive. So flowers, I've heard people say don't put roses on your altar because of the thorns. Like you don't want to put anything on there that could hurt them. My ancestors love roses. So I always do white roses. You can do whatever you think they'll like, but you'll know, like you can just experiment. The more you connect with them, the more your altar will build out. But you can definitely just start with a candle and a glass of water. Honestly, you don't even need a picture, but a picture would help, but you don't even need that. And you'll start seeing it. Like sometimes you'll go out and be like, why do I have a taste for pork rinds? I don't even eat that. Like, you know, you'll start seeing or smelling things. I know I started smelling like perfume, like that old lady perfume one day. I was like, okay, I should put perfume on the altar. You know, little things will start happening like that, but a candle and a glass of water is always a good place to start. You have any additions?
I love how you mentioned the tasting shit. I'm not much of an eater, okay? I know that my ancestors are on my ass when I gotta make a jambalaya or something like that. I'm like, I don't even eat. I don't have a stomach for it. Peach cobbler. So yeah, when you get cravings and you're on diet and you're doing well, that is divine, because you have a strong ass connection. Like, I mean, stop everything you're doing and sit down and try to divine, because they got some serious shit they're trying to tell you or trying to do for you. So cravings are really good. But yes, that was all I got.
Okay. Will ancestral oil bring you closer to your loved ones when it's placed on your candles? So I have an oil that I made that for my ancestors. I wouldn't necessarily buy someone else's oil. Now, if you're here, clarify ancestral oil for me, because if the oil is for like spiritual connection, sure. Like, you know, I sell divinity oil, it's for spiritual connection. You can dress your candles with that, that's fine. But it's not necessary.
I do want to mention bloodroot. If you are trying to, it's not the oil that matters. And if you're going to use the oil, use olive oil, right? But the number one herb to connect with your ancestors is bloodroot. Are you guys familiar with that, bloodroot? It's basically blood. Like it's an actual root that looks like vein. I do make an ancestor oil. Whether I would sell it or not, it would be very basic, and it would be based on bloodroot. So just throwing that out there. Like, it's not necessary, but if you don't feel like using your blood, that is a representation of your bloodroot.
And I would even say, like, it kind of just depends on what your ancestors need. Like the oil I made, I divined and I asked them, like, okay, what herbs do you need? What do we have to work on? So my herbal oil is very particular to my bloodline. It's always best to make your own. I guess that's the basis of what we're saying. You can buy it, it's not gonna hurt you. It's not necessary, and I wouldn't say it would bring you closer.
Put your blood in it. A lot of people don't know, if you're not using your personal oils for anything other than yourself, right? Power it with your blood. Put a drop of blood in your shit. Because at the end of the day, this is your blood. You share this with your ancestors. Whatever oil you want to use, drop a little blood in there. Sorry, blood magic. Just saying, no. It gets the job done.
Your finger go crazy.
You can use your hair too if y'all kind of like eked out about blood. I actually used to use a lot of ancestor oil, and I that was like that wasn't made and crafted by me. And what you'll find is as you do these practices, you'll find that the connection gets stronger, and then they'll give you a recipe and you won't need that other person's stuff anymore. And that's kind of where that whole intentions thing comes from. Like great magicians start with their ancestors. Like whenever anybody comes to me and say, I want to know how to, I really want to grow in this. I really want to, okay, so you need to take the time you was gonna give me and give it to your family, and they'll give you back gems that I could never imagine giving you, because your bloodline comes with their own arsenal of magic and tools and wisdom that I just can't touch. I'm pulling from mine to get where I'm at. They pull from yours, and you'll see how they take you. Obviously, some bloodlines are more elevated than others, but the best bloodline to stick with is yours. So I would use whatever you got for now. Like she says, it really doesn't matter. Put your own stank on it, put your hair, your nails, whatever, and then go from there. Your ancestors will communicate with you, and they'll start giving you recipes on what oils you can make for them.
So I'm gonna do these 3 questions together. So what form of petitions are best to bring to your ancestors? Do you only have to use petition paper or brown paper to write petitions? And what's the best writing tool to use? So a petition is just a request. There's not necessarily, I personally don't go to my ancestors, but like stuff that I can easily handle. Like I always say, figure out the physical, mundane solution first. But I wouldn't say there's like a best form of petition to bring to your ancestors. I also don't feel like the paper matters. So the reason that we use brown paper is because it's most of the time closest to the actual earth, and it has the brown color correspondence to the earth. It's not bleached. It's usually pretty raw or recycled. But honestly, it doesn't matter in my experience. I've ripped out notebook papers. I've used printer paper, whatever I had on hand. I've used dollar bills. It doesn't really matter. I've even typed something out and then printed it and used it, and it worked. And what's the best writing tool to use? I like using Sharpies because they're permanent, or I like using charcoal. I like using pencils because of the charcoal, but I personally wouldn't say there's a best tool.
If you're using candles like wax candles, pillar paper, use a pen and etch it into, like, if you want to sit there and do that, I'll actually sometimes put my petition on the actual candle, on the working like itself. Like I will use like a pen, and I'll write my petition into the candle and etch it in. So as it's burning, my intentions are kind of being released off into the energy with the candle, like simultaneously. So you can get creative, y'all.
I like to burn and dress the candle with it.
And put it in there, yeah.
Just showing you all, like, especially like with, where's the camera? Like, what are you doing? Jesus. But like, just showing like you can literally, sorry, I got a cigarette in my hand. My shit's real. But putting hearts and shit, on it, and putting like your family names on it. Like you can get really, really, really creative with that. That felt like a very pagan question. Like I hate to say it that way, but it felt very pagan. And there's no a little bit. Because you gotta think about it, right? And I'm coming from ATR hoodoo, right? I'm coming from a hoodoo perspective. Our ancestors didn't give a shit about the color of the candles. They didn't give a shit about the paper. If they were gonna write, because remember, a lot of them couldn't even read. They had to get part. Okay. But no, I just have to say that, like, that felt so pagan. no judgment. Like I'm pretty fucking pagan, so I get it.
I'm going
I
to
mean, think slavery, y'all, because when our ancestors, some of us may have kind of skipped the whole slavery lineage, and that's great if you did, but they didn't have none of this shit, and they was making miracles happen, and they know, your people know what your resources are. They know your intentions. They know you. So you don't have to have all these grand gestures sometimes. Like sometimes if you could just go outside and stand in the mud with your bare feet and pray, that's all you have to do. That's to honor your ancestors. That's in itself ancestor veneration, because you're tapping into the same life force that they were once a part of, and ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Mhm. Okay, next question. We got a lot of questions. I don't want this to be 3 hours.
Right.
How do you heal ancestral wounds that you know may be keeping you blocked, not only from them, by your entire team and gifts? I'm gonna let y'all answer that.
Ooh, you want us to be here all night. Let me light my joint.
Yeah, it's a very layered question.
It's I'm gonna just keep it this way. I'm gonna keep it very simple for you. Write a spell. Write a spell. Write your intention. If you know how to write a spell, I keep it real. You know how to write a paper. You know how to send a text message. You know how to communicate with somebody. That's what I'm saying. Write a spell and get yourself a candle. Start there, because it gets so advanced that you'll get overwhelmed. So just start by writing a specific spell, a specific incantation for that specific healing intention, and using that, if that makes sense. Did I answer the question, or did I ADHD?
No, you did. I feel like that was a great summary. I also would say, from an astrological perspective, look at your Chiron. That's the wounded healer. The more that you heal your Chiron placement, the more connected you'll be, and the more you'll be able to tap into more things. I also want us to release the burden of trying to heal everything in our lineage. It's great, but it becomes it just becomes very burdensome, and you're here to enjoy your life, be a good person, but you don't have to constantly be like, okay, what's wrong with my family? Because now I need to heal this and make sure I'm not going. It causes this spiral of shadow work. And I was just talking about this with my homegirl in messages, because I'm like, what if it's not oh, you need to sit and set aside and constantly be like, okay, what's wrong with me and how do I fix it? It's more so like, okay, as things come up, I'm noticing that this is a pattern. What is this trying to tell me? When was the last time I felt like this? Is this even mine? Does my family deal with the same thing? It's more so like that, things that are directly affecting you in your day-to-day life. You're going to constantly be healing stuff. I don't want you guys to get in this cycle of self-improvement. You're going to drive yourself crazy.
You heal. The human body, just keep in mind that the human body has the ability to heal itself. You will heal by proxy if you allow it.
Nice. Oh, I love it that you said that. I just love it, because I was about to just say what Michaela talked about earlier when she said your body can be a living, like a veneration, like a sacrifice in a sense. Heal yourself. Do you, baby? Like, you could go to the gym or start working out, and that could be your healing your ancestors, because now we have one less person who's going to die from generational trauma, poor diet, or poor lifestyle habits. And now you taught that healthy lifestyle to everybody that comes after. Boom, you just changed the timeline. So you don't have to even, like I said, all these grandiose things. Whenever you feel like you aren't making the difference, think about your ancestors that were enslaved. Think about the ancestors that didn't know how to read and write. What you think they was doing? You thought they had these big, oh, I know I'm gonna make a Instagram page dedicated. All that's unnecessary. It's create the relationship that you want with your ancestors, and they will enlighten you from there. They will take you everywhere you need to go, because if we remember that God is love, we understand that love is what actually gives us our superpowers. You have to lead with the love. You have to say, I love my ancestors so much that whatever condition I am in, I'm coming to them and I'm trusting them and I'm leaning on them. And we're going to guide each other through. That's why churches will say, come as you are, because it doesn't matter where you were before and we don't know where you're going to go. But if you just come as you are and do the work, you're going to find that you've done everything you need to do.
Absolutely. I feel like that's a whole class within itself. So I'm gonna hop on that. We definitely can. Okay, we answered the disposing question. Is there a specific type of ancestral money that should be used? I don't use ancestor money. That's a Asian practice. I use real money if I am gonna incorporate money. Some people listen, my godfather used to say everything is voodoo. Like you can you can use ancestor money, but that's not something that's indigenous to African spirituality, which is what we practice. I prefer burning or working with actual currency. For me, for one, it's like a rebellion against the US dollar. And two, it's also like a sacrifice. Like this is something that I know I'm gonna get back. I know this has value in this lifetime and or in our society today, I could say it like that. And it's like it's a form of like tithes and offerings. Like I'm gonna offer you this real dollar as a sacrifice, but I don't use ancestor money. You can, I don't.
That's really groovy, ancestor money. I could just hear my ancestors now talking about some, oh yeah, you don't really give a shit about us because you don't use it. I can just hear them right now. I don't even think about it, Kiera.
It's really funny because yeah, like I think about stuff like that, like this, it has no, like, what's the, I'm a person that's like, what's the why? Like, why are we why are we doing this? You can print ancestor money on your printer and burn it. I mean, I guess it's the energetic exchange and the attention does matter, but I would rather burn real money or use real money, keep real money on my altar, because that's the currency we use, whatever currency you use in your area, because I know we have some people that don't live in the US in here. I would just use that. I wouldn't even worry about the ancestor money. That's an Asian practice.
If it don't hurt, if it don't hurt, like listen, take $100 bill and put it on your damn altar. It's gonna hurt because it's like, damn, I really need this, but I am coming to you. I need you more than I need this, and I'm sacrificing for you. Some ancestor. I'm not judging. I just hear them talking shit. Like, what you need to think about?
Right, like, don't give me this monopoly money.
Okay.
Girl, no, you know what? Use coins, y'all. That's universal because it's from the earth. Use coins. That's always a good practice. Silver, copper, whatever. Use the coins because they're gonna resonate on a universal level, and you're gonna bring earth to your altar and your offerings. And like she was saying, it's the sacrifice is in knowing that money doesn't really matter anyway. Like it's all fake if you really want to be honest. That's why I said give coins because it's of the earth.
Yes. I see you guys going off in the chat. I'm not ignoring y'all. I'm gonna go back to the chat and answer your questions. I promise. Just remember them if I
I feel like we're gonna have to part two this. Like
yeah. Well, we only have a few more from Facebook. So okay. I'm gonna group these together because we kind of touched on all of them, but just in case we missed them. So what if you don't have pictures of your ancestors? You don't need them. You can use if you want to have a representation, you can put a empty picture frame. What if there's bad blood between two sides of the family? What to do about altars? I would keep them separate or choose a side or figure out, like Kay said, figure out how to mediate. How often do you leave offerings and change water? We touched on that. I change my water every day. That may be different for you. If the max 3-4 days, maybe. Usually I change it when it gets cloudy or goes down. But for the most part, in the morning, I just dump it out and change it. And how do you pray to and honor your ancestors? So from how me and Shalana were trained, and Kay probably too, because she was always in the classes, we used the PRAY method: praise, repent, ask, yield. We could probably do that in a separate class. But honestly, all you have to do is talk. Hey guys, I'm going through this, blah, 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 blah. Talk to them like they're in front of you. Talk to them like they're your best friend. Honor them by honoring yourself. You are the altar first. Everything else is just a physical representation or a trigger to your intuition. But at the end of the day, if you're honoring yourself, you are honoring your ancestors. You are healing your bloodline. Did you guys want to touch on that?
No, I think we have in a way. So yeah.
Okay.
What she said.
Yes. And Deborah. Okay, she said her ancestors are not big on food offerings. They like flowers, herbs, oils, sometimes tea or coffee, but very rarely meals or food items. Is that me needing to deepen my connection, or is everyone's experience different? We touched on this a little bit too. I would just say everyone's experience is different. If you know that they like coffee and tea and flowers, and like they like those offerings, keep giving them that. Or sometimes maybe you can switch up the food. You could try that, but it doesn't have to be food. You're just making a connection.
I did see one quick question, I guess, that we can get. Like a lot of these other questions are like healing questions, and I feel like we should just have a separate like chat on that.
Yes, we can do a healing Zoom.
We're gonna have to. But what this one's big, it is important when it comes to ancestor veneration, and it's how long should you wait after a person passes to start. So yeah, what do you think about that, Michaela?
I like to let the energy settle and let them transition peacefully. Now, I will say, you know how we do like candlelight services for people that pass, or like, we release balloons and stuff. Like you can do something similar to that. Like, I'm honoring the spirit. I'm praying over you. I'm sending you good energy, right, for your transition. I would wait a year if that. But I guess it just depends. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I waited a long. You know what? It really does depend. But I would say honestly, I want to wait a year. People will say you should wait like at least 40 days. Because it takes their spirit that long to kind of like start the transition process, except that they're on to their next spiritual contract, et cetera, all these things that happen. I mean, just kind of think about it like when you get on a plane and you're going international, how you have to check in and do all these processes before you can even board the flight. Like you haven't even gotten to the plane yet. Think of it like that when you're transitioning into this next realm. Like there's so many things that has to be put in order before they're in a space where they can not only hear you, but connect with you. It's almost like whispers in the dark. Like you don't know who's saying what when you're in that space. Everything's kind of like staticky. So they're not listening for anyone. And the more time you can give a spirit to adjust to their new like transition, the better. It's just like asking someone who just had a baby to go take a jog with you. Like, what the, like, can I get a minute? Can I get a minute? Like, can I collect myself? So just kind of think about it like that. Like, give them some time. And the more traumatic the death is, that's how much longer you should give them before you try to like make serious and earnest connections, because some spirits don't even process that they've transitioned for a very long time, and that goes into a whole nother set of things. But just the situational, I would say, if anything, actually divine. That's a good thing to divine on your ancestors who actually know better than you may know in a situation, because they see things we don't.
I would definitely. I would definitely a year. Some people say 6 months. I say year, and here's why. It depends on who it is, but there are a lot of ancestors that stay behind because they're waiting on another one of you to pass. and they want to carry them over. I hate to say it that way, but especially with a lot of people who have deaths that are so close together within their family, 9 times out of 10, an ancestor or two stayed behind so that they would be able to carry them into the next phase. So a year is a very good rule of thumb. Also, if the person was super spiritual, like for instance, my great grandmama, right? Super spiritual person. That's a person that I could venerate that 6 months, because she was already there. She was already ready, versus a person who didn't have that much faith. They probably don't even have an understanding of death and what the hell just happened. So I'm happy that Shalana mentioned that, because that's something to take into consideration.
Mhm. When you ask your ancestors for something, do you give them the food for it first or after you've received what you've asked for? So personally, I'm always feeding my ancestors. So sometimes I just do work and it just kind of is what it is. But when ideally I would do it, like when I'm working with Santa Muerte, for example, I give the offering with the spell. So it's like she's fed, her altar is set up, I'm also working simultaneously, and then I'll give another big offering when it's done, if that makes sense. So like it depends, divine, but essentially I'll do food and spell work and then dispose, clear things off, and then give more food. But when you're always venerating, they're fed and they have energy. The reason that I do offerings simultaneously with spell work is because to me it's like, hi, I'm coming to you with all of these goodies. Can you help? Pretty much. Or can you use this energy to, depending on how big and grand the working is, can you use this energy to power this work? That's how I see it personally.
I like that you said that. And I kind of laughed at first because the Scorpio in me, the selfish person in me was just like, what the fuck you got for me? You know, like you want all these things, but what's in it for me? I'm stopping my spiritual assignment to come back and double back and help you with something that you need divine intervention for. And you just smiling at me, and it's just, I don't think you should make it a practice to give it after, because what if they don't do it? And then now it's almost like you're not even appreciative of what might be happening because you think it didn't happen. Like, I don't know. It's like you could be waiting a long time to offer them. Maybe they need the food to power, their intervention, and it may not manifest sometimes, maybe even years down the line. Like sometimes your work, you may do, let's just say, for example, some kind of healing work today, but you don't really see it manifest until 6 months from now or a year from now. Things were put in motion to get you there, but you just didn't see the fruits of the labor. So you can't not give it until 6 months later. It's almost like they're going to get weak in transit trying to assist you sometimes. So I would say do it before, but make it a practice of constantly giving, because then even if you come with a petition and you maybe don't have like fresh offering, you can kind of still get in where you fit in, because they like, oh, we know you always got us, type of thing. So like I said, just think about it like you asking somebody to do you a favor. Like, why would I give you $100 if you ain't hit my line in like 6 months? Like, what do you want from me at this point?
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
Probably an unpopular belief. Get in the habit of not always asking your ancestors for shit.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I've taught. This is what I've been taught. Especially when I started venerating. When I start venerating anything, I don't ask for things for a very long time, because just to show that loyalty. And this is my mindset. If you are actively venerating them, it's very rare that you're going to have to show up with a big family
box of goodies.
Because it's like, we're fed. That's just like the whole liquor thing, right? Another unpopular belief. Everybody's like, liquor. And I'm like, okay, that's a treat. because I don't need your ass drunk while you're doing my bidding. We're gonna
They
have
will slurp down. Like I'd be like, it's no way dead people drank my whole bottle of alcohol like this. I have to
Spirits,
stop.
girl.
I would have to be like, y'all.
seriously. It's like, no, this is a treat. If I'm showing up with pound cake, you know I need some sweet done. If I'm showing up with a glass of wine, you already know what it is. I'm not gonna do no next. Okay. But no, it's like get in the habit of just being still when you go to your altar, giving and not asking for anything in return, because you'll start to see that they just start doing shit for you just on general.
Just because.
Like, oh, like you could have
Moving.
somebody attacking you and you not even fucking know about it because they're powered, they're being taken care of, and they're doing it for you. You don't even know. And they're like, oh shit, we got your blowback. You're like, what? I was just doing my nails. I don't know anything about this shit. I attacked you and you, oh, that's bad. I'm sorry.
Yes, absolutely. Which is pretty much the basis of this whole class. Venerate your ancestors. Venerate your freaking ancestors. Like they will make the heavens and earth move for you when you don't even know what lies ahead. You don't have to ask for everything all the time. When you're making breakfast, make them something. If you're making coffee, put it on the altar. Like just think of them. You know, that's really the gist. What about veneration of adopted family members? I say you absolutely can venerate them. They have legally they have
a contract
authority over you. So that's your family. You can venerate them. And as well as, you know, you could put the empty photo frame. And you can just say like all my ancestors that mean my greatest and highest good. Set that intention. That's perfectly fine. I'm trying to scroll back. If you guys, I feel like we answered a lot of these. So if you guys have like a really impending question that we didn't answer, just say it again, because I'm trying to scroll back as much as possible. Oh, someone said, Michaela, why don't you recommend pendulums for beginners in divination? So pendulums lie. They will lie. If you don't have any sense of clairaudience or clairsentience, clear anything, they can lie. They're also easily swayed by what is going on in your head. So if you could try it with your pendulum, literally hold it and think yes, it'll swing yes. Think no, it'll swing no. So if you subconsciously have an idea in your head of how something's going to go, and then you ask your pendulum without having a clear mind, and it'll do whatever you tell it to do. So I don't recommend it for beginners. The way I use mine is with a board now. I don't even like asking it simple yes or no questions, because I know that about myself, that I can sway it. So I use it with my astrology board, and it's harder for it to lie, because it's telling me an exact placement of the planet and a sign. It's yeah. Did you guys want to add on that?
That was, yeah.
People don't. Oh, you want to go?
No, go ahead. You started.
Okay. The goal is to master. The goal is the pendulum needs to master you and not you master the pendulum. And so, like Michaela was saying, it taps into it has the ability to tap into your desires and give you what you want to see. But I'm gonna tell you something right now. If you are a master manipulator, because I'm gonna be very honest, I'm a master manipulator. I can manipulate tarot cards. You have to make sure that you are protecting you have to know how to separate your consciousness. It's a weird ass thing to say, but you have to know how to split yourself when you are using things like a pendulum. What's another one? Like
a mirror. It's like the mirror on the wall. it plays into what you were saying. I was thinking it's like the Snow White story. You can sometimes create trickster energy in your life doing that because it's a
Moving other
reflection of your
delusions.
deepest desires sometimes. And
Mhm.
sometimes our deepest desires have a way of consuming us to a place of madness. So using those kinds of tools are not just beginner's work, so to speak. If you don't have a gift or your family doesn't have a tie to that type of magic, you're playing. It's just like taking hallucinogenics. Somebody might take peyote and have a spiritual awakening and forever be changed for the best. Somebody else might go into a dark sunken place of trauma and get consumed by their own demons and never come out the same. Don't fuck with it. That's all I can say, because spend time with yourself. Sit in a quiet room and like go into nature, and that'll show you what your divination tool should be. And I know that sounds like real woo woo, but you got to do it. Even if you live in a city, like go into nature and sit with yourself and feel what connects with you. And that will kind of give you a direction on what clair you own. And that will show you what divination tool you should go to first. Because some people can divine with crystal balls and they see shit play out right in front of them, yes or no. What's gonna happen, like if I have quote unquote a seance, I'm gonna see the whole situation play out in front of me, and I'll be like, like on some Doctor Strange shit. Like that ain't the timeline I want. And you can really play around with it because matter can be manipulated, and that goes into like all kind of metaphysical shit. But like she said, don't them pendulums, tarot. I'm sorry, Ouija boards, pendulum, and one more. Mirrors and mirror magic. It can get real tricky.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't recommend that for beginners at all. Like you need to know yourself before you do that.
If you can't split your conscience, don't use a pendulum. It's that simple. I know like what I'm saying is very technical, but if you cannot decipher what's you and what's not you, if you can't split, don't do it. It's a waste of time. You're gonna fuck yourself. That's all I got.
Yes. Okay, it doesn't matter if you put salt on their food or not. Kay, you answered this in the chat, but just so everyone can see here, fix it up like you would eat it. Fix the plate like you would eat it. You can add seasoning. It's fine. When you have clairaudience, what do you recommend as the best divination system? So I wouldn't necessarily say there's a best divination system. I would say your clairaudience is a form of divination. You would just use a secondary tool to confirm. And I want all of y'all to understand that. Like your intuition is first, and the tool is you triggering your intuition or you confirming your intuition, or your spirits or whoever is speaking to you. It's a tool. It's a tool.
Like fact checking yourself.
Exactly. And I feel like readings are more clear when you do it that way versus being like, okay, what's going on? Show me. Then you're confused because the cards or whatever you're reading can mean so many different things. But when you already have an intuitive nudge, then it's like, okay, now I'm confirming it with these cards, if that makes sense.
Can I say something
Yes,
before you
please.
move on?
Please.
Because I remember getting yelled at in a specific place where we all used to hang out at. Because we were hanging out and having fun, okay? But no. So I like how you touched on that, having that second method of divination, because I have all the clairs. By the way, it's not uncommon for you to have them all. You can master them as you go on, okay? And it made me laugh because I would always get yelled at because I would answer a question just based off of my divination, my clairs, and they wouldn't believe it until you show tangible proof. So sometimes it's good to just show that tangible proof just for others that are looking. It just made me laugh because I was like, you know, some of us don't need tools, but then I was like, no, we should probably have a second method of divination. So
Right.
It gives
Just
us all
really-
a basis to understand what's going on. Which is
exactly.
why we ask for divinations. It's easier for us to read a situation via cards or, you know, whatever your divination said, than for you to be like, okay, this is what's going on intuitively. I feel like this, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just, there has to be a common baseline, a commonality that we all understand to
Exactly.
know how to read the full scope of the situation. It's a perspective thing as well. Does the size of the offering on the plate matter? No.
The thought that counts.
That's pretty much all the questions. All right, guys, that's cool. So 2
Right.
hours, that was great. 2 hours, perfect. This replay will be in my mentorship hub, which you can sign up on giftfromneptune.com. It's $55 a month. All of my replays are there. The next class is on Wednesday. Me and Shalana are going to be teaching / demonstrating prosperity magic on, we're going to talk about candle magic a little bit. We're going to talk about oil lamps because I know you guys are super interested in oil lamps. I believe we're both doing a lamp. I'm doing pineapple. Shalana's doing a watermelon. The syllabus is in the group. I'm including people in my ritual. My prosperity ritual is usually 88, but for this one, I'm doing 33. The class is free to attend. If you want to be included, it's $33. It's on my site. Yeah,
Y'all better jump on that. $33.
it's lit, and y'all gonna see me do it. Y'all gonna see us do it, and hopefully it helps y'all. I hope you guys pick up on what we're saying and doing, what we're not saying and doing, you know, and just learn how to construct magic, even if it's not prosperity. Learning how to pick herbs, the meanings of each candle, why you use it, why we're using certain things, why we're praying over it, why, you know, all the things that we're doing. But you know, that's Wednesday, 8 p.m. EST. Absolutely, you can join in, take notes, watch, whatever. Like, it's a free-for-all. I want you guys to join. I'm not trying to gatekeep anything. Everybody should know how to
make oil lamps.
And oil lamps work quickly.
Fast.
They've made lots of great change in my life. All right, guys. So, are you sure you're not trying, girl? So if you guys could post in the group that, you know, any review of the class, what you guys learned, maybe 1 or 2 things that you can pinpoint that you learned, it will help me a lot, it will help us a lot. And yeah, I appreciate you guys for joining.
Thank you.
And
Can I say something?
yes.
No, can I say something, please?
Yeah.
Okay, so I did a thing, guys. I'm now starting to do readings, and they're super cheap. Like, you can take advantage of me and use me for the time being.
Shalana also does readings.
So, and that's another thing. It's like y'all have full ass readers in the group. Take advantage of that, because one day it won't be available, and we wouldn't want
I
that.
got 3 kids. I'm like, I got 3 kids, y'all. I'll be sitting there putting my heart and soul into these responses. We be trying to help as much as possible.
We love y'all so damn much. Like, so yeah. Thank you, everyone, for being awesome.
Y'all.
Yes, I appreciate you guys' patience. We lost some people throughout the way, but I figured that. But thank you guys for rocking with us for 2 hours. And I hope you guys learned a lot, and y'all have an amazing night and rest of your week. And I hopefully will see you guys Wednesday.
Bye. Good night, everyone.